Hello everyone, it's very nice to meet all of you in person. My name is Qingshi too. I'm the assistant professor of industry ecology at Department of Science. So today I have the great pleasure to speak on behalf of all the excellent researchers in theme 5, which is the bioproducts ecosystems analysis. So I will try to play with this as well. I should point here, right? No. Here? Okay, good. I'll go with this way then. So in theme 5, actually, we have a vision for the bioeconomy, right? So we think for a sustainable, successful bioeconomy, we should be able to use our resource wisely and at the same time protect our environment from any unintended consequences, right? And of course, we should make sure the bioeconomy is actually viable in terms of economically, right? So, and also last but not the least, we should make sure that the bioeconomy is actually socially responsible. So it's just, it's basically justice for everyone. We don't want to marginalize any of the groups. So in order to do that, our mission is to apply different, modeling and other analytical methods to help the sustainable development and the deployment of all those amazing technologies the other theme leaders has introduced within UBC and actually beyond UBC in a more broad research community so that we can actually address the problem of sustainability at different scales. Right, so within our theme, we really have a very diverse group of researchers and we do very multidisciplinary research. So if we want to boil the research down into let's say three beams here, right? So the first one is related to technology. So that's mostly my work. So I'm gonna talk about that in the end. And then if we look at a bigger scale, right? So we have multiple researchers. We look at the socioeconomic indications, drivers about the deployment of different bio-based technologies. And also, we have another focus area. We want to look at how different policy drivers can actually help us to achieve a sustainable bioeconomy. So I will go over some of the examples in the next few minutes. And I have to admit that I can only talk about the research at a very high level. So I would highly encourage you to talk to the individual researchers you identify in this event, and you can learn more about their research in much greater detail. So the first research, almost got it. Yeah, all right, good. So the first research I want to introduce is Professor Rob Kozak, who's an internationally renowned researcher in sustainable business management. So I think in this recent publication, Rob and the other over 30 researchers actually put together their knowledge, their perspectives, and then the case studies to show us a rich body of example of how we can move our, the global economy in a sustainable direction. So it is feasible, and I think this book actually contains a lot of good examples and, and also some insights we can actually gain from. And also, Rob is the Dean of Faculty of Forestry, and I think almost like the same time last year, actually, Rob kind of called on some of the faculty members in the Faculty of Forestry to ask us to assemble a committee to look at the Faculty of Forestry Climate Change Action Plan. So this is a really excellent opportunity for the researchers and the students to come together to implement our knowledge and the skills to the actual actions we can actually implement in the daily operation of our faculty. And we hope that can be a really good example for other faculties and departments as well. And the next researcher I want to highlight is Professor Hamish Veneman. And Hamish is also an expert in the sustainable supply chain governance. And he's also interested in the online activism and its impact on behavior change of the business operation, which is actually a very interesting area because if you think about the development of technology, right? So the actual impact to the whole society actually rely a lot on the acceptance of the technology and how people is going to adopt that, and all these actually link to people's behavior, right? So in this recent publication, Hamish and his co-authors basically look at a very interesting question, right? So intuitively, we think if we involve more stakeholders, we should actually come up with stronger, like sustainability standards in let's say, a given organization. But is that the case? Well, what are some unexpected factors? And that's going to be surprising, is actually very interesting finding from this particular industry. So articles, I will encourage you to actually read that. And also, Hamish is sitting on the UN Forum on Sustainability Standards Advisory Council, which is like an international collaboration on helping different business to develop their sustainability standards. So this actually indicates the broad impact of his research. And then next, I will highlight Professor Hisham Zarefi, and he's the PI of the Energy Resource Environment and Development Lab. And Hisham is also internationally renowned expert in understanding the factors that affects the technology diffusion in different regions, in different economy. Right? So again, think about technology, right? So we talk about technology development, which is the foundation, but also in order for the technology to be actually deployed at a large scale, the diffusion and the drivers are very important. So that's actually Hisham's work, and Hisham's also the core member of an international group that developed a tool called Fable. I will encourage you to check it out. I believe that's publicly available, and you can use the tool to experiment with different scenarios how we can achieve sustainable land use and food supply in different regions. And also outside research, Hisham is also the associate dean of EDI at the Faculty of Forestry, who actually helps to drive the faculty in terms of implementing the equity, diversity, inclusion, and the indigenous knowledge into research and teaching. And next, I would like to highlight Professor Greg Parody, and he's the newest member of our team. I think Greg just started like last year. It's a relatively short period of time. And but Greg is actually looking at a very important question, right? So intuitively, as Heather also mentioned, that we develop bio-based technologies, we produce bio-based materials, energy. So we think it should be environmentally, benefit, right, sustainable. But actually, in reality, it's a very complex problem, right? So how do you sustainably manage your forest so you can generate, for example, the forest residual or the other, like sustainably manage your fibers, so you can actually start with a, sustainable material, is a very complex problem. So there are multiple factors to it. So Greg actually applies operations research to this very complex problem. And I think in this recently published paper, and Greg and his co-author are actually looking at how can you actually effectively manage the ecosystem carbon capacity of the forest in terms of, I think, in the case of the VC. And I think next I would like to highlight, the Professor Dominic Rosser. And Dominic, I think, had multiple years of experience with FP innovations before joining UBC. So a lot of his research is actually related to the field. And I remember probably about 2 years ago, Dominic actually gave a presentation on his own research. I see a lot of very interesting smart technologies, for example, the forest management and harvesting, and also, so as you can see, there's like Dominic has a really long list of funding collaborators, not just the federal funding, but also from the industry, right? So, and also Dominic actually helped lead the establishment of I think the first global Trimble Technology Lab. I think some of you probably have seen this in the first floor of Forest Research Center. So it's a newly renovated lab where you will have a lot of like advanced software and of course hardware for I would call like immersed education environment for the students who are actually in the first program. And also, as you can see here, there's a simulator. I always want to get a right on that. Probably, I think it's too popular. We're going to talk about it later. But yeah, so I just want to showcase. Again, it's very, very hands-on research and the education for the students. And I think lastly, I'm going to talk about my own research. So my research is basically in the field of industry ecology. So I guess not many of you actually know this term, but probably a lot of you heard of the term life cycle assessment, right? So actually LCA is one tool that industry ecologists actually use to evaluate the sustainability of a technology, a system, economy. But we have other tools, for example, like input-output analysis, material flow analysis. I'll be more than happy to talk about those, in private. And in this recent publication, our group basically review the application of those different tools in terms of the assessing the sustainability of forest-based products and the systems. So we look at, for example, the tool that can evaluate the environmental impact of individual technologies, the tool we can evaluate the environmental impact of the economy, where forest products and the trading of forest products play an important role. And then we apply the tool that we can look at, for example, the availability of the forest resource if we want to achieve a certain forest-based bioeconomy in the future, right? So, and I think in a nutshell, basically my group applies computational-based methods to look at the sustainability of those emerging technologies at the different scales. And outside research, I'm also, actually, like many of the BPI researchers here, we have a long list of collaborators within BPI and beyond, right? So, I think that actually shows how strong a community we are in terms of generating really multidisciplinary research outcomes. And outside research, I also serve on some of the working groups where it's, in the foundational research of, for example, life cycle assessment. So together we try to kind of move the frontier of the methodology development. And I would like to wrap up this presentation by reiterating the mission of our theme. So this, I guess, we are all familiar with this trajectory of technology development, right? So from the lab scale, then we move up the the TRL, and hopefully we reach the full scale implementation. And what Theme 5 is trying to do is to make sure at each step of this trajectory, we are actually guiding the development in the right direction in terms of environmental protection, right? So economic viability, resource efficiency, and probably more importantly, especially at a full-scale implementation, we want to make sure there's the technology development and the deployment are socially responsible, and we want to help devise more, let's say, equitable policy to help the development of the bioeconomy. So collectively, we can achieve this very ambitious goals. I think we all are aware of this, right? The UN Sustainability Development Goals. So with that, I'll thank you for your attention and wish you a good, a good event today.